And we are here. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. I, of course, am your host, Tyler Lopes. If you have not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. Also, hit that bell icon so you never miss any one of my videos. Also, please like and share this video so we can help the podcast grow. And please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Lopes Goes Last podcast on Facebook and at Lopes Goes Last on Twitter. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their Christmas season or holiday season, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you were surrounded by family, friends, or whoever you chose to celebrate your holiday season with. I went down to Florida and spent some time with my wife and with her family for the holidays. It was very, very nice, very relaxing. Long drives, but other than that, it was great. And so I hope all of you had as good of a Christmas season or holiday season of whatever you choose to celebrate during that time. I hope you had a fantastic time as well. So let's jump right into it. First thing I want to get into this week is talking about the Boston Red Sox. Nothing really noteworthy has happened over the last week. The only thing that I can say that the Red Sox have done since free agency opened, other than of course losing a few players and signing a few players that I've already talked about on this channel, Justin Turner or whoever it may be. They just recently did sign Corey Kluber to a 1-year, $10 million contract and a club option for 2024. But other than that, nothing really of note has gone on for the Red Sox. So I kind of want to just talk about where I think the season is going and what I think is going to happen this week. Or not this week, excuse me, but this season with the Red Sox. And that is basically that just kind of looking up and down the roster for the Red Sox, their season is already done. I mean, their season is already completely broken at this point. I don't really have much hope as a Red Sox fan going into this year, and I don't really know a single Red Sox fan that does have any kind of hope going into this year. I don't consider myself one of those baseball fans or Red Sox fans or whatever that is just completely unrealistic with my expectations, right? And I don't feel like I'm that way with really any of my sports teams. I feel like, I have a pretty good pulse as to where I think the team is going to be. I thought that the Patriots were going to be a little bit better than they were this year, and the only reason is just because I didn't anticipate the absolute catastrophe that has been the offensive coordinator situation this year that has really, I think, held the team back a little bit more than what I anticipated. But then, obviously with the Celtics, I figured they'd be, maybe not the best team in basketball, but obviously up there this year. So I feel like I had a pretty good pulse on what's going on. And last year I did not think the Red Sox are going to be very good, and it turned out to be correct. And this year I don't think they're going to be very good at all either, and quite frankly, I actually think that they're going to be worse. And I know that that's not really necessarily a surprise to a lot of you, especially those who have watched and paid attention to what's happened this offseason for the Red Sox. But yeah, obviously the Red Sox are not going to be very good. And there's many, many reasons for that. Basically, everybody that has been there, that has been consistent and has been good performers over the last 4 years, ever since our World Series team, is gone now. The only guys that are still there that were consistent performers on that World Series championship team is Rafael Devers. He's the only one that's left. Everybody else is gone. Uvalde's gone. Betts is gone. Bogarts is gone. Martinez is gone. Christian Vasquez is gone. Chris Sale is still there, but he hasn't really pitched in 2 years. So, how great is he going to be when he comes back? And even if he is great, how long is that going to last before he possibly gets hurt again? I mean, I hate to say it because, in a lot of ways, injuries, they're not the player's fault necessarily. It's not something that a player can control. It's not like, I talked about last week with my 2013 NBA draft redraft. Which I got such a positive response from you guys on that. Thank you so much. But I talked about it last week. Anthony Bennett was a complete and utter bust because he was healthy, and he just was very, very bad in the NBA for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Chris Sale, it's not like when he's out there, he's bad. He's still one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball when he's healthy, but the problem is he's healthy about 5% of the time right now. which is obviously not going to cut it. So how reliable is that guy going to be when he does come back? He's starting to look like one of the worst contracts in baseball right now, which is a shame because Chris Sale is a fantastic pitcher when he can toe the rubber, but he just hasn't been able to toe the rubber recently. And obviously, that's just as useless as going out there and stinking in a lot of ways. I mean, you're just paying somebody to, go to physical therapy every single day. It just gets monogamous. It gets tiring. It's just not good. And by the way, I think I said monogamous. I meant to say monotonous. But you know what? We'll just keep that in there just for your guys' laughs. Shows you how tired I am today. But anyways, so Red Sox, their team, it's just not good. Point blank. They don't have anybody that has been consistently performing on that team other than Rafael Devers at this point. And yeah, I also am including Trevor Story in that, guys. And I know that it sucks, and I hate to say it, but the guy hit 220 last year. Yeah, he had some good power, and yeah, he had a stretch where he was, hitting home runs like mad. But Trevor Story seems to have, a point in a season like that every single year. And now he's not going to be at second base. So we're going to see another one of his flaws ever since his injuries in Colorado, which is his lack of arm strength. He just has not had the same arm strength since his arm injuries in Colorado. And that's a well-known fact among baseball people. It's that Trevor Story, people are worried that his arm will not translate to being a full-time shortstop anymore. It's why the Celtics were all right with him playing second base. But now that Bogaerts has departed for San Diego, he is going to now have to be the starting shortstop. He, of course, meaning Trevor Story. So if he's going to want to stay healthy, he's going to have to play great defense and play very well at shortstop, and his arm's going to have to hold up there. And so we're going to see if that really happens this year. But yeah, I mean, the Red Sox season is just completely busted right now as far as I'm concerned. And I tweeted the other day, the Red Sox now have two legitimate starters, and those two legitimate starters are two guys that haven't pitched in 2 years, basically. So, if that's your two best and most reliable guys on your team, on your pitching staff, what is your season going to look like? I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I just do not see how the Red Sox are going to justify this to their fans at the end of the season. How Shane Bloom can justify putting that product out there. And again, I've said there's going to be riots in the streets if Rafael Devers leaves. I genuinely think at this point, if I was Rafael Devers, I'd get the heck out of Boston right now if I was him. I really would, because I don't see it. I really don't see a direction. Now, I know Shane Bloom did a really, really good job running the Rays, but guess what? The Red Sox aren't the Rays. The Red Sox don't have 18 million fantastic pitching prospects just laying around. They don't even have one at this point really laying around in their minor league system. So, for me, Shane Bloom is running the Red Sox like we don't have any money. He's letting all of our stars go. He's not, he's not making moves that have been Red Sox style moves over the last few years. Yeah, he's brought in a couple of decent free agents, which is nice, but a couple of decent free agents aren't going to win you a championship, and you're in Boston. Boston expects success. That's how it has always been since 2004. So maybe not always, but since 2004, Red Sox fans expect you to be in contention every year. And if you are bad, then you are supposed to bounce back the next year or 2 years later at the very latest. And if it gets to the point where you're going to be bad as the Red Sox for 3, 4, 5 years, that's just not going to be acceptable at this point. Now, if it makes sense for teams like Oakland, like Kansas City, like Pittsburgh, even like the Rays back when they weren't good. Obviously, they've been good for 5 or 8 years now at this point. But for me, it makes sense if you are a lower budget team for you to have these long periods where you're not very good, because you are waiting for your prospects to develop. And then once all those young guys come up and are on your major league roster and they're producing, then you can make those little productive free agent moves that hopefully will help you win a championship. And then maybe you make a trade or two at the trade deadline, get a nice stud pitcher or something like the Royals did back in 2015 with Johnny Cueto, and hopefully that puts you over the top. But for the Red Sox, they have the luxury of having a large amount of money that they can spend every season that not every team has. And I feel like Shane Bloom is acting like the Red Sox do not have that money. Now, yes, the Red Sox had one of the biggest payrolls in baseball over the last 5 years, and a lot of those contracts were a little bit too hefty. The JD Martinez contract was one of them. Absolutely. Right? This Chris Sale contract was big. The David Price contract back before he was traded was a big contract. But guess what? All those contracts are off the book now. So there are no excuses other than, of course, the Sale contract. He's still there. But just about every other contract is off the table now. Trevor Story's obviously on a big contract. Chris Sale's obviously on a big contract. But other than that, everybody, by Red Sox standards, is not on a very big contract. So, you're going to have the money to re-sign Devers. And again, there's going to be riots in the streets if the Red Sox don't re-sign Devers. But I'm not going to be surprised if they give him, even if they gave him more money to stay than any other team would be giving him to go somewhere else. I wouldn't be shocked if he just went somewhere else, man. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he just said, all right, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm going to go to the Angels or something. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't. Because the Red Sox don't have a good farm system. They don't have a good major league roster. So that just makes the future really murky. And so I think this season is going to be really, really murky, and it's looking like next season is going to be really, really murky, especially if Devers leaves, because then you let JD Martinez walk in free agency, Uvalde walk in free agency, Xander Bogaerts walk in free agency, you traded away Mookie Betts. Like, everybody that was young and or productive on your team over the last few years is now not on your roster. You did not keep any of them. And quite frankly, I think that they would have traded Chris Sale last year had he stayed healthy. I wouldn't have been shocked if especially looking back in hindsight with all the moves that Shane Bloom has made. I wouldn't have been surprised if that had happened. Now, I know that that's obviously just my own craziness, and it probably wouldn't have happened. But, I mean, let's be honest. If it had happened, would you have been shocked at this point? Would you be shocked if tomorrow you woke up and Chris Sale got traded to the Mets for, a brown paper bag and half a peanut shell? I mean, would you? I wouldn't. But nonetheless, I don't have any hope for the Red Sox this year in terms of their record. I don't think they're going to be very good. Now, listen, I didn't think they'd be very good 2 years ago either, and they made the ALCS. So I've been wrong in the past, and I will be wrong in the future for sure. But for me right now, I just really don't see a bright future for the Boston Red Sox. And until I'm proven otherwise, that is the point I'm sticking to. Moving on to something completely different, I want to talk about Luka Doncic. Now, I know it's kind of a leap at this point. Why am I talking about Luka Doncic? Well, one reason is because last night at time of recording, Luka Doncic did something that none of us as basketball fans have ever seen before, because it actually has never been done before. He had a 60-point, 21 rebound, 10 assists triple-double in an overtime victory last night. And yeah, it's as crazy as it sounds. 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. That's bananas. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. Luka is an absolute freak. And he's so much fun to watch. And I know that a lot of people, obviously less people now, but a lot of people don't think that Luka is, among, the elite in the NBA yet, because he does leave a little bit to be desired on the defensive end, quite frankly. But I'm going to say this right now. Last year, and quite frankly, possibly the year before, I was one of those people that thought that Joel Embiid should have won the MVP, especially last year. Joel Embiid, I've been one of his biggest fans since he came into the NBA. I think that he is the best center in basketball, other than maybe Jokic at this point. I mean, it's hard to argue against Jokic. He's absolutely unbelievable, but Joel Embiid is a better defender. His points per game is ridiculous. His rebounds are ridiculous. He obviously he's putting up more blocks per night. Now, Jokic is obviously he's arguably one of the most complete offensive basketball players that has ever played the game, especially for a center. I mean, a guy that goes out there and averages 9 assists a night at the center position for a number of years straight. I mean, that's incredible. It's virtually unprecedented in the NBA at this point. So he is remarkable. So other than Jokic, I would say Embiid is probably your best center in the NBA at this point, and I don't even think that's much. You can present to me whoever you want. You can present to me Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns. Doesn't matter. I'm taking Joel Embiid over any of those guys. And so for me, I really thought that Joel Embiid should have won the MVP last year, and I said at the beginning of this year, I think that this might be the year that Joel Embiid can win it. The only other guy that I think has a real legitimate shot of winning an MVP this year is Luka. And the reason I said that is not because, it's not because a guy like Giannis or Jason Tatum or, again, a Nikola Jokic, it's not that they can't win it. Of course they can. But at this point, other than Jason Tatum, Giannis has already won his MVP. So, that story it's not like a storybook ending for Giannis. He finally wins MVP, right? Steph Curry is always a threat to win MVP, but he's going to be hurt for quite a bit this season already. He's already been hurt for about a week. He's going to be hurt for another 2 or 3 weeks. And when a guy is injured for that much of the season, it's really hard to win MVP at that point. And you never know. He could be out for longer. He could get injured again. You just never know. And then, obviously, guys like Kevin Durant have already won MVP, and Kevin Durant's having an MVP caliber season as well. For me, there's just not a lot of guys that I thought had a unique opportunity that haven't won an MVP yet to win this year. To me, there's 3 guys: Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic. And if I had to pick an MVP right now, as much as my heart is telling me Jason Tatum because, hey, best player on the best team, that's a pretty good argument for MVP, right? But I've never been the guy that thinks best player on best team is MVP. I just haven't been that guy to believe that. I think that if you are the best player in the NBA that season, you should win MVP, regardless of what team you play for. Now, obviously, if you're putting up, very similar stats to another guy, but your team is below 500 and the other guy's team is the best team in the NBA, yeah, I'm gonna lean more towards the guy whose team is winning, because the MVP also should ideally impact significant and consistent winning. But that's not always the case in every single scenario. I certainly wouldn't be mad if somebody was putting up 40 points a night right now and his team was 500 at the end of the season. I wouldn't be mad if he won MVP. I mean, look at Russell Westbrook a few years ago. He was clearly the best player in the NBA when he won MVP that year, and his team was, the 5th seed, the 6th seed in the West? Somewhat middle of the pack in the NBA? I mean, but was that on him? No, the guy averaged a triple-double for a season. I mean, that's insane. So, that's not always the case that, best player on best team should win MVP, but I do understand both points of view. So, again, Jason Tatum makes sense. That's what my heart's telling me, but you know what my head's telling me? My head's telling me that Luka Doncic should be the MVP right now. I mean, and it's not just because of last night. It really isn't, although, of course, last night helps quite a bit in that scenario, because quite literally Luka Doncic is the only reason that the Dallas Mavericks won that game last night, and he is really the only reason that the Dallas Mavericks are relevant. They have struggled mightily to put a team around Luka, and now, if it continues to happen that way, you're going to have to shift the blame somewhere, right? It's either Mark Cuban or the general manager or the coach. They already they have a new coach already. Jason Kidd's doing a fantastic job over there. But, at a certain point, you're going to have to start looking at, is it the coach? Is it the owner? Is it the general manager? Or is it Luka? Hey, listen, we've seen teams that are supposed to be amazing and win the championship not excel. Many, many times. Brooklyn Nets recently. You can go back a few years ago, the 76ers, right? Trust the process. Trust the process was supposed to take over the NBA, and it just didn't work. And the reason ultimately that it didn't work, we all saw it, was because of Ben Simmons. It wasn't because of the general manager not being able to put a solid team around anybody. It wasn't because of the coach not being able to do anything. Now, sure, those, it's not like they were all perfect, but mainly the reason is because, quite frankly, Ben Simmons was not that guy. He was not the guy that fans, coaches, anybody, the front office, thought that he was. So we've seen this happen many times before. So if it keeps happening over and over and over again, people might have to start looking at Luka as the problem. Now, I'm not saying Luka's the problem right now because as far as I'm concerned, he's not even close to the problem. But hey, listen, in 3 years, if the Dallas Mavericks continue to be mediocre, then blame's going to start being thrown around in all directions. And if you think that that's crazy, it's not like it's not happened before, guys. It's not like it's unprecedented. How much hate did LeBron get early in his career? LeBron is one of the best players ever. Many people will argue that he's the number one player, and many more people will argue he's number two. So, as far as I'm concerned, LeBron James is a top 5 player of all time, bar none, first ballot Hall of Famer, multiple-time NBA champion. Have we forgotten that early in his career, people thought LeBron James was the reason teams couldn't win a championship? LeBron was selfish. LeBron's play style wouldn't work. LeBron couldn't carry a team by himself. LeBron this, LeBron that. And all that turned out to be so silly and wrong. LeBron is amazing. Think about it. He's putting up 27 points a night. At year 20 in the NBA, we have not seen anything like this before. Yeah, is he as good as he used to be? No. Is he as healthy as he used to be? No. But he's still incredible and so fun to watch. So, and people thought that guy was the problem at one point for why his team wasn't winning a championship. So, it's not like generationally good players haven't been told that before. Shaquille O'Neal's another example. He went to the Lakers and they lost in the playoffs a couple of years before they got that three-peat. And people thought, oh, Shaq's a great player. He's a dominant force, but can he win the big one? That's what people will say. Giannis, same thing. Kevin Durant, same thing. It's not like it is unprecedented. So if it continues to not work, don't be shocked if that happened. But right now, Luka Doncic is killing the game. Absolutely killing the game. And as far as I'm concerned, he's my pick for MVP right now. I know. I'm a Celtics fan. I should stick with Jason Tatum. And listen, if Jason Tatum wins the MVP over Luka Doncic, I will obviously be over the moon happy. But for me, the most valuable player in the NBA right now is Luka. The guy is just an animal. Listen, 33 points a night, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. The guy is just killing it. Now again, on the defensive end, he leaves a lot to be desired. But look at the team that he has around him. His second best player, arguably, comes off the bench. Christian Wood. At least his second best offensive player comes off the bench. The other really good player, Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, look, Spencer Dinwiddie as your third guy. Listen, I have a lot of love for Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he's supremely underrated. I think that I talked about it in a trade deadline video I did last year. Go and check that video out if you haven't seen it. Although at this point it's a little bit mute. But nonetheless, I said that he still had a lot to offer. I still thought that he could be a great pickup for the Dallas Mavericks. And he was. He was great for them, especially in the playoffs. But if he's your third best player, that's not good. That's you're really risking it there if he's your third best player. And quite frankly, he's arguably their second best player. Because at least he starts for the Mavericks. At least he's out there with the starting group. people have said a lot that Jason Kidd should start Christian Wood and play him more minutes, but at a certain point, you just kind of got to go with what you feel is right if you're the coach. And if he doesn't trust Christian Wood on the defensive end, which it seems pretty clear to me that he doesn't, then he doesn't trust him, and then it is what it is, right? So if that's the team you're surrounding Luka with, and then you got Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, Davis Bertans, that's just not going to get it done. That is just not going to get it done. And I just think that they need more. Now, listen, they have been in kind of the circulation, trade talks for Trae Young of the Hawks. Now, if they got Trae Young on that team, that's a scary shooting duo. But again, you do have to worry about defense. Trae Young's not a good defender. Neither is Luka. He's not as bad as everybody says he is, but he certainly is not an elite defender by any stretch. And then you got Christian Wood, who's not that great of a defender. You got Spencer Dinwiddie, although I think if they did trade for Trae Young, I feel like Spencer Dinwiddie would be the key piece in that trade. I don't really see a world where Spencer Dinwiddie and Trae Young are still on that team, considering the Mavs don't really have a lot of pieces that would be valuable to the Hawks. Unless they're just going to give up like 9 first-round picks, which please don't do that for Trae Young. And again, that's no disrespect to Trae Young. He's a great player, but I just don't think any player is worth 8 first-round picks. We saw that with James Harden. Brooklyn sold their soul for James Harden, and he stuck around for about a year. And then they got 2 first-round picks back for him and Ben Simmons. No player is worth 8 first-round picks. People were talking about Kevin Durant in the offseason being traded for 10 first-round picks, and it's like, why would you sell your franchise like that? There's just no, you're just going to hurt yourself long-term. There's no point in doing that. But anyways, point being, Luka, despite having a pretty lackluster roster around him, has completely dominated. Now, think about how difficult that is. Teams know who he is. Teams know that the Dallas Mavericks do not have that many consistent weapons around Luka at this point. It is pretty much the Luka Doncic show, and he is the guy, and that is it. It's not like LeBron, who also has Anthony Davis, and then really nobody else. Although right now he doesn't even have Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is hurt for the 13,000th time in his career. But at least when AD's healthy, LeBron has an arguable top 10 player in the NBA when he's healthy. Actually, arguable top 5 player in the NBA when he is healthy. So, at least he has that. Luka doesn't have that. Luka has Luka's Batman. There is no Robin right now. There is no Robin for Luka. So, what are you going to do? I mean, they had Porzingis, but they decided to ship him off to Washington, which I think was the right move. I don't think Porzingis was the best fit for them, and it turned out to be, pretty accurate, but I don't think Christian Wood's the best fit for them either. And right now, they're struggling to stay 500 right now, and Luka's putting up numbers that are just insane, and they still aren't very good. If Luka gets hurt, if Luka sprains his ankle, they're done. I mean, they're going to lose every game. They've got nobody else. Spencer Dinwiddie at that point can average 25 or 30 points a night, and they're still not going to have nobody. So, for me, the most valuable player in the NBA right now has got to be Luka. It's got to be Luka. There's obviously arguments to be made for plenty of other guys that I've mentioned already. But if I had to pick one right now, Luka's my pick. Let's talk about the Patriots. Now, I'm not going to go on some kind of giant tangent here about, I told you so and all this stuff. I'm not going to do that. Because at this point, it's useless to me. It doesn't bring me any comfort. I want the Patriots to be a good football team. That's all I've really wanted for the last couple of years. And yeah, they were all right last year, but this year it has been probably the most frustrating year as a Patriots fan that I've had in my lifetime. And listen, if a 500 year, which I mean, there's a shot that the Patriots go 500 this year, if that is your worst year, then you know what? That's not too bad, right? I mean, in hindsight, if we wouldn't be 500, if we went 8-9 or whatever the case may be, right? It's that's not gonna kill anybody. That's not gonna really make me stay up all night and cry and everything like that. Like if that's the worst season that I've had to endure as a Patriots fan, then I'll be fine. That's not the record isn't really the frustrating part. I think the frustrating part for me is that the Patriots have had their chances. They have been in games, they've lost some close games, and they're broken. I mean, from what I have seen this year, the Patriots, the matrix has been compromised over there in New England, and I think that for 20 years. The Patriots have kind of put together this like indomitable presence, and it's not always necessarily how good they are, right? They've had some down years. They've missed the playoffs. They've gotten killed in the playoffs. They haven't gone to the Super Bowl every year, right? But I think the thing that teams and fans and players even expect from the Patriots is, yeah, they may not be the most talented team. They may not be the fastest. They may not be the quickest. They may not be the youngest or the most athletic team. But they will be one of the, if not the most disciplined and most well-coached teams in the NFL. That is what you expect when you play the Patriots. You expect them to take away your best weapons, and you expect them to be very disciplined and not beat themselves. That is what you expect from the Patriots. Even if you are better than them, you can definitely beat the Patriots. There have been plenty of teams that have knocked the Patriots out of the playoffs, that have beaten them in the regular season, that have just been better than them on a given Sunday or Monday or Saturday or Thursday or whenever. But this year is the first time that I have seen the Patriots in my lifetime truly over and over and over again beat themselves. Now, this is not to say that the Patriots are better than everybody else in the NFL and they are just beating themselves. No, they are arguably, they have one of the worst offenses on paper in the NFL. They have a terrible offense on paper. Sorry, I hate to burst people's bubbles, but, it's not all on the coaches. The Patriots don't have a lot of talent at wide receiver right now. Jacoby Myers is a decent player, but he should not be a number one wide receiver in the NFL. Devontae Parker has been decent, but they brought him in to really be the number one guy, and he just has not been that guy. Kendrick Bourne, to me, deserves more playing time, but he has not had a lot of playing time, and when he has had playing time, he hasn't come through every time, although, this past week against the Bengals, he had a pretty solid game. And Tyquan Thornton has not really had much of a role on our offense, despite being a second-round wide receiver who has been healthy every week since week 4. And who is the fastest guy on the field. He has not had that much of a role. Quite frankly, the most exciting guy that the Patriots have on their offense is a defensive back, Marcus Jones. The times that he plays offense is the time that I find myself the most excited. And when a defensive back playing offense is the most exciting thing that happens for you on offense, you're not in a good spot. So it's not all on the coaches. There is a large talent gap on offense between the Patriots and the Chiefs, or the Bills, or the Bengals, or the Eagles, or the Cowboys. There just is. However, all that being said, some of the Patriots' issues has obviously been coaching, which is something that I'm fairly new to in terms of the Patriots. I have not really seen coaches be blamed so much for a team's struggles, at least a Patriots team's struggles, than the offensive coaching staff has been blamed this year. Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, everybody said, listen, these are defensive-minded coaches, man. Why are they coaching the offense? Bill Belichick's a defensive-minded coach. He's not going to, he's not going to really pay much mind to the offense. And Matt Patricia, again, he was the defensive coordinator in New England and then a defensive-minded head coach for the Lions, and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. It doesn't make much sense to me. But he's still a smart guy. Maybe he could throw something to get... No, he can't. It's been horrible. It's been putrid. It's been disgusting. The New England Patriots have one of the bottom 5 offenses in football. Mac Jones went to a Pro Bowl. Yes, as an alternate, I understand that, but he still went to a Pro Bowl. He was still in the running to be a Pro Bowler, to the point where when somebody did not go to the Pro Bowl, they called Mac Jones. He was a Pro Bowler as a rookie with, again, not a lot of weapons around him. He had a couple of decent running backs. Hunter Henry had a pretty decent year, and Jacoby Myers is your number 1 wide receiver. He didn't have Devontae Adams or Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb or DeAndre Hopkins. He had Jacoby Myers. And again, I know I've said it so many times during this, not just this podcast, but other podcasts in the past. I like Jacoby Myers. I hope he stays in New England and they pay him good money because he's a good player. And it's hard for young wide receivers to succeed in the Patriots system. It just is. So, I like Jacoby Myers. But he just should not be a number 1 wide receiver in this league. He just shouldn't. That's what Mac Jones had to work with last year, and he still made a Pro Bowl. As a rookie, in the Patriots system. People were comparing him to Tom Brady. And this year, it took him 17 weeks to throw more touchdowns than interceptions on the season. 17 weeks to throw more touchdowns than picks. He has 9 touchdowns. 9 in 15 games or 14 games. That's less than 1 a game. This isn't the CFL, man. This is the big time. And it's not all Mac Jones' fault. And I know I said in, whether it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that I wasn't sure that Mac Jones is the guy. And I still feel that way just because he's regressed this year. And it's not all his fault. But for me, you still had a guy who made a Pro Bowl last year, and now I'm sitting here as a Patriots fan questioning whether the rookie quarterback who made a Pro Bowl in his first year, in his second year, I'm questioning whether he's the guy or not. That's not okay. That's not something that just happens every year. Look at Justin Fields. Everybody thought that he stunk last year because the Chicago Bears, let's be honest, they stunk. And then guess what? They traded away his number 1 wide receiver. Their offensive line is awful. And his stats are not good. But everyone universally says, nope, that guy's a stud. Because even with that crapshoot of a roster and that crapshoot of a coaching staff and that crapshoot of a front office that's not giving their young quarterback even remotely a chance to succeed, he has still shown flashes of brilliance. He's still shown that incredible arm that he has. He's still run for very, very long touchdowns to show off his athleticism. He's still been able to fit crazy throws into tight windows. It's not his fault that he's getting sacked 11 times a game. We all universally have said, no, Justin Fields is fantastic. He's a stud. He's the guy. He's a franchise quarterback, or at least he can be a franchise quarterback. We're all universally saying that. And the Bears have 3 wins. The Patriots have 7. And I'm sitting here saying that Mac Jones stinks. Why? It's because the potential, the ceiling that Mac Jones has, it's almost like he's already banging his head against it. Like he's not even going to get much better. It's almost like he came out of college and that's what you're getting. He was never going to get better. He was never going to develop. He was never going to get any arm strength. He's going to be exactly who he is out of college. And you know what? People warned us about it. And we all said that we were okay with it. But I don't think we're okay with it. And you know what? Maybe that's our fault. But the point is, I'm sitting here having this conversation about Mac Jones possibly not being the guy less than a year after he made a Pro Bowl. And a lot of that is because of the coaches. They have absolutely stunted this kid's growth. They have. And it stinks. Now I'm hoping that, Patriots actually get an offensive coordinator next year. That's an actual offensive coordinator. And if they do, hopefully that'll help. But until that happens, I have to call it like I see it. The Patriots are completely and utterly broken. Just look at the last 2 weeks. How did those games end? Did the Patriots wildly underperform? No. Patriots honestly should have won both those games. The Patriots were beating the Raiders with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Gave up 2 touchdowns, one of them on one of the most brain-dead and unnecessary lateral plays I've ever seen. And listen, everybody was screaming at Jacoby Myers for that. It's not Jacoby Myers. Although, of course, yeah, he shouldn't have thrown that ball. But nonetheless, nobody should have been lateraling. They were acting like they were down by 7 when the game was tied. Ramondre Stevenson is a good player. I like him a lot. I think he's our future RB1. He's already our RB1 right now, but I think he's going to be the RB1 of the future, and I think he has very high potential to be another LeGarrette Blount type running back where he's just a big body and he just always falls forward. But 2 weeks in a row, he's made brain-dead plays at the end of games. Brain-dead. Yes, everybody yelled at Jacoby Myers for throwing the ball that Mac Jones, that was right to the linebacker, and then Mac Jones got stiff-armed to the dirt like he was being put down for a nap by a grandmother. Just, shh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then the guy ran for a touchdown. Yeah, everybody yelled at Jacoby Myers for that. But you know who had the first lateral on that play? Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, he ran for like 40 yards on that play. And at a certain point, you either have to concede, hey, I can't get any farther. I got to go out of bounds. Let's go to overtime. Or you got to try and cut back inside when you're going toward the sideline and try and get to pay dirt yourself, man. But lateraling it when it's tied, not a good idea. Very, very bad. And then this past weekend, Christmas Eve, Patriots are down 22-0 to the Bengals. They're just getting run off the field. Because the Bengals, to be honest, are much better than the Patriots. They are. Both sides of the ball. Well, maybe not the defensive side of the ball, but definitely on offense, they are leaps and bounds better than the Patriots. They got outperformed. And it's not like our defense played poorly. The Bengals are a good team, and they only gave up, 22 points to the Bengals. That's a pretty good game for our defense, quite frankly. And Mac Jones and the Patriots offense, it's like they woke up finally. It's like they said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. I want to make the playoffs. And they came back. They forced a key turnover with 5 minutes left in the game. They drive down the field. They get to the 5-yard line. They're down by 4. They can run the ball a couple of times. And hopefully you get it in the end zone. The Patriots have struggled in the red zone, though, so it's not always a guarantee. But you sit there and you just hope and pray, right? All you got to do is run the ball. Hopefully the big body of Ramondre Stevenson can get you in the end zone. If he gets knocked backwards for a couple of yards, all right, you try and throw. You try and get closer. You got to score a touchdown, obviously. So, you have a shot. You're at the 5-yard line. 5-yard line. Ramondre Stevenson gets stopped right at the line of scrimmage and gets kind of knocked backwards a little bit, right? Does he go down to try and save the clock? Does he try and bounce it outside? Try and get some more yards? Maybe make something happen? No. He just kind of stands there like banging his head like, hey guys, let me in. Can you let me in? Oh, there goes the ball. Fumbles the ball. Bengals recover. Patriots lose. 2 weeks in a row, brain dead. Brain dead. Now, obviously, neither of those plays were all Ramondre Stevenson's fault. I'm not trying to solely blame Ramondre Stevenson, so don't think I am. Because Bill Belichick has come out and said that genuinely, he didn't say it directly, but he certainly implied that he had thought that Ramondre Stevenson's forward progress had been stopped, and so that the play should have been whistled dead. And, maybe there's an argument to that. I've seen it, and I wouldn't have blown the whistle dead, but people, maybe other people would have. But, and obviously he didn't tell Jacoby Myers to throw the ball across the field to the linebacker. So, it's not all on Ramondre Stevenson. But the point is these types of things don't happen to the Patriots. For 20 years, these things never happened to us. Never. And now, all of a sudden, this year, it's happening every week, it seems like. Just a complete lackluster offense, brain-dead plays late in the game. The Matrix has been broken, guys. The Matrix has been broken. And it's sad that there's a chance the Patriots end up last in their division this year. Crazy. All right, moving on to the Boston Celtics. The Celtics, they scared me. They scared me for a minute there, but they seem like they are back to their normal dominant selves. As of the time of this recording, they are playing the Clippers right now, and the Clippers put a pretty good whooping on the Celtics last time they played them this year. So, I'm hoping that obviously turns out a little bit differently. Hopefully, obviously, when I start to edit this and get it out to you guys, I'll see that the Patriots are winning, or the Celtics are winning, or that they've won. We'll see. But nonetheless, the Celtics just, they have the best record in the NBA right now. On Christmas Day, they absolutely annihilated the Milwaukee Bucks, who I've said publicly on this channel, I think is really the only team, as of right now, that's a legitimate threat to the Celtics in the East. Although now, Brooklyn has won, 13 out of the last 14 or 14 out of the last 15, whatever it is at this point. They are starting to look like they're putting things together, and, that scares me. But for me, I just think the Celtics said they righted the ship, and man, let me tell you, when they were bad, they were awful. They went from having the best offensive rating of all time to having the worst offensive rating in the NBA over a period of 5 or 6 games. I mean, it was a collapse of wild proportions. But luckily, it seems like they're past it now. They've been playing a lot better the last few games, and I genuinely hope that they continue that momentum, because I would just really like to see a deep Celtics playoff run, and I really would like to see a Celtics championship. Obviously, so Celtics, yeah, they are on a nice little win streak right now. I think they've won 3 games in a row now. Hopefully tonight will make it 4. But for me, the things that are interesting to me about the Celtics is, what are we going to do with the trade deadline? Because I think at this point, Robert Williams has come back, so your front court looks a little bit more, a little bit deeper now. Cornette's played well. You obviously have Al Horford. You still have Grant Williams. And then now you have Big Rob back, who's playing pretty well coming back from injury. He's still not all the way there yet. You could definitely tell. But I think Joe Mazzulla has really done a nice job of easing him back in. He started out playing him 10 minutes, then 12 minutes, 14 minutes, 18 minutes. Now he's up to about 20 or 22 minutes a game. We'll see how much he plays tonight. And you know what? I've seen where he's played, 20 minutes one game, and then 2 days later you think, oh, he's going to play 25 minutes or he's going to play 22. No, he goes back down to 16, or to go back down to 12. Like, it just really depends on, how other guys are performing and the kind of night that Rob's having or that Al's having or Grant's having. And I think that that's really smart. I think to not put a ton of pressure on Rob right now is the best move. I think that that's great because he'll be able to practice and get his legs back under him. He's still getting confidence back in the game, and he absolutely torched the Houston Rockets. He had 11 points, 15 rebounds. He started to look like the old Rob again. So we'll see how he plays tonight. But I think that they've handled that situation about as well as they can. But, do you still want to add more front court depth? I think so. I think you definitely probably want to get one more guy in there that's going to give you playoff type minutes and really be a contributor, at least on the defensive end, because still the Celtics defense leaves a little bit to be desired right now. So, do you trade for a Jakob Poeltl? Do you trade for a Bismack Biyombo? Do you just wait for the buyout market when that happens? Maybe look for free agency. There's still some decent centers that are on the free agent market right now. So, what do you do if you're the Celtics? Like I said earlier in the podcast, Trae Young is on the trading block for the Atlanta Hawks, and the Celtics have been one of the teams that have been linked to him. I don't really want that, just because I think the Celtics would have to give up a lot. They'd have to give up Robert Williams. They'd have to give up Peyton Pritchard. I've even seen like Jaylen Brown for Trae Young, which I would rather have Jaylen Brown than Trae Young. I mean, as great as Trae Young is, he's awful on defense. And so, for me, I'd rather have Jaylen Brown. That's just my opinion, but that's I can understand people disagreeing with that, and that's totally fine. But for me, players that can play both sides of the ball. That's the way that's kind of how I feel about that. So, what do you really do if you're the Celtics? I think, quite frankly, you stand pat. I think that you are about as good as you can be right now. If you can get Jakob Poeltl for like Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornette, and a first, I'd consider it. And I know that, Celtics fans are like, no, not Pritchard, not Cornette. Dude, for Jakob Poeltl, though, I would give that up. I mean, he's really, really good. He's really, really good. Would I be okay if they traded a second round pick or 2 second round picks for Bismack Biyombo? Sure, why not? Get him over here. That sounds good. He'll play good defense. Fine with me. Do you trade for Mo Bamba? I feel like his price is going to be a little bit, high. But for me, maybe that's something that you explore. If you're the Boston Celtics, can you try and pry Mo Bamba away from the Magic? How effective will Mo Bamba be in 15 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night? We'll see. But, maybe we won't see because, I obviously might not trade for him. But the point is, do you entertain these moves? Do you trade for another wing player, a good defensive wing player? Who knows? So I think I'm very intrigued as to where the Celtics season is going and to, what's going to happen at the trade deadline or as we get closer to the trade deadline, as we get closer to the All-Star game. Definitely keeping my eyes and ears out for stories that are going on. But right now, the Celtics are just back to their dominant selves, and it makes me very, very happy. One of the things I have been wanting to do for the last couple of weeks now is really kind of dive into more NBA stuff. Now, I did that last week, obviously, with redrafting the 2013 NBA draft, and I want to keep doing stuff like that for the NBA just because, for me, the NBA it's my favorite association for sports to watch. I feel like the thing I know the most about. Even though I played baseball in college, I've always kind of gravitated more towards watching basketball, following basketball, stuff like that. So I really want to kind of take a deep dive into some NBA stuff. And so I want to end this episode of the podcast with something a little bit different that I haven't done before on this channel. I want to talk about some teams that I just think have really, really bright futures in the NBA right now. So I'm going to rank my top 5 NBA teams in terms of how much I like their rebuilds. Now, that is a terrible, terrible title, but I'm going to make up a better one for what you guys are seeing in terms of, when this clip comes out. I'm going to have a better title for that. But for right now, NBA teams, I will rank them top 5 NBA teams based on how much I like their rebuilds. So number 1 is going to be the Indiana Pacers. Now, I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory. If you've watched this channel before, I mentioned it earlier in this podcast. If you watched my NBA trade deadline video from last year, you'll know how much I love Tyrese Halliburton. I loved Tyrese Halliburton, before he was even drafted. He was one of my top 5 players in the draft that year, and I was so hoping the Celtics would draft him, and he ended up just getting picked 1 pick or 2 picks before the Celtics ended up going. And obviously the Kings made the correct pick and then traded away the correct pick because the Kings don't do anything right ever. So obviously the Pacers got an absolute steal. The guy is averaging more assists per night than anybody in the NBA right now. He's shooting 40% from 3. Even though his shot's not the prettiest shot in the world, and it's not the quickest shot in the world, it's effective. He is a really, really good, lengthy, long defender. And the Pacers are just in a really good spot right now. They have a great mix of young guys and veterans that are productive. You still got Buddy Hield. You still got Miles Turner. So it's you've got a really, really good team over there. And you still got some really, really good young guys other than Halliburton that are really stepping up this year. And so I think the Pacers right now, if I had to pick a team that I would say is going to be the most dangerous in 3 years, I'm going with the Indiana Pacers right now if I had to pick one, because their rebuild, I love what they are doing right now. I think that they are playing about as perfectly as you can in terms of a rebuild. You have a good mix of veterans on decent contracts that you can trade at any time, and young guys that are productive and that are stepping up into that role, but you're also not winning a ton of games either, so you're not overperforming either, but you're starting to see those guys play really, really well. You're starting to see them put it together. Tyrese Halliburton dropped 40-something points the other night. He's an absolute animal. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. Certainly, and I think the Pacers are going to be a very, very dangerous team in a couple of years' time. Second team here is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Very, very hard to not put them in number 1, just considering the absolute treasure trove of first-round picks that they have over the next 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's really, really hard to not say that they are the number 1 team, rebuilding team in the NBA. But that just goes to show you how much I really love Tyrese Halliburton and what the Indiana Pacers are doing over there. But the Thunder, very, very close second. They are really, really showing out this year. I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about some stats here for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. For those of you who do not know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is one of the best young players in the NBA. He's absolutely fantastic. I want to compare him to Jason Tatum, who is, in a lot of people's circles, the front runner for MVP right now. Certainly in the top 3 in the MVP race right now. Jason Tatum is averaging 31.1 points per game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists on 47.7% shooting and 36% from 3. He also is averaging 1.2 steals and 0.9 blocks. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31.5 points per game, so that's more points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 5.8 assists, that's more assists per game, on better shooting splits, 50% from the field and 35% from three, so not quite as good of a shooter, but 1.7 steals and 1.1 blocks. That's more steals, more blocks, more points, more assists, more efficient shooting from two-point range. I mean, if you don't know about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, now you know. And by the way, that kid is 24 years old. He is younger than me. So, yeah, if you don't know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you better start knowing, because that guy is an absolute stud. To me, the least talked about star in the NBA. For sure, because he plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder and not a lot of people watch. But he is a legitimate top 15 player in the NBA. And for me, if he keeps playing like this, it's going to be hard to not put him in the top 10. Really, really is. And it's not just, they don't just have Shai. Obviously, they have both Jalen Williams over there. They've obviously got Pokusevski, who's playing a little bit better this year. I really like Pokusevski. He hasn't really been that great for the Thunder. He's been wildly inefficient as a shooter, and that's basically what they got him for length and shooting, and he hasn't really provided all that much. But I still think that he's a guy that can develop. Obviously, Chet Holmgren, the number 2 pick in the draft this year, who I think was the best player in the draft last year for me. But obviously he got injured and he's not going to be playing. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see what he's actually going to bring to the table. But if Summer League was any representation, he's a stud. I mean, he's an absolute stud. He's fantastic. You obviously still have Lou Dort over there. I've liked Darius Baisley, but he hasn't really panned out all that much over there. And so, you know, they've got a really, really nice young core going in Oklahoma City, and they still have so many draft picks. They are going to be trouble for a very long time if they play their cards right. Pick number 3, the Houston Rockets. Houston is just a team that I really, really enjoy watching. And they obviously got 8 first-round picks from the Nets for their James Harden trade. They traded away John Wall. So, you know, they have a good amount of draft capital, and they also have some really, really good young players, right? Alfred Sengun is fantastic. Obviously, Jalen Green is an absolute stud. You know, he's going to be a guy that can be a legitimate number 1 option for them for a long, long time. He's great. And, you know, Kevin Porter Jr. obviously is very, very good. So for me, I think that you've got a couple of really, really nice, young, good pieces over there in Houston. And the reason why they're at number 3 and not at number 2 or number 1 is because they're not as deep and not as far along on their rebuild as, say, the Pacers or the Thunder. But I think that with the amount of first-round picks that they have, the fact that they're still not very good, so their own picks are going to be pretty high, you have a chance of trading for good players, drafting good players, and you already have a couple of really, really nice players on your roster if you're Houston. So, again, for me, I think that they are really, really well off right now, and plus, they're just fun to watch. And whenever a team is fun to watch, regardless of if they're good or if they're bad, I'm going to really like it just because I enjoy having fun, as 100% of people do in the world. So good for Houston. I think that they are going to be just fine in a couple of years. Just stay patient. And I think that they're going to be pretty good if they play their cards right. Pick number 4, the Utah Jazz. This is an interesting one because they are literally within their first couple of months of their rebuild after trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert away. They got a ton of draft capital for that. And also, they have some pretty darn good players on their roster still. Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Most Improved this year. He has been absolutely fantastic for them. I mean, you know, you've got this core of really, really solid pieces, and you have draft capital to go along with it. So, for me, Utah is a team that is going to be pretty dangerous in the next couple of years. They've wildly overperformed this year, and the players on their roster are being maximized to their fullest potential, and Danny Ainge is pulling the strings over there. So I'm not surprised that they made these big trades, and looks like they're getting a good amount out of it as well as the Cavs, and the Timberwolves are not getting as much as the Cavs. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is a freak, but we'll get to that in a second here. Spoiler. So, you know, I think the Jazz are having a really, really great year, and I think that their rebuild is going to be just fine if they can build around, you know, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and then draft a couple of really, really nice young pieces as well. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I kind of spoiled it a little bit here, but number 5 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this seems a little bit unfair because the Cavs are so far along in their rebuild that it's almost like they're not rebuilding anymore. But think about where they were a couple of years ago when LeBron James left. I mean, they had no hope. They had no draft capital. They had no real guys that they could trade away that would give them any kind of value. They were building around Colin Sexton. That was their hope. Their hope was Colin Sexton. And Colin Sexton got them Donovan Mitchell, who's clearly a massive upgrade. He's averaging almost 30 points a night this season. They still have Darius Garland, who is a fantastic young player who's averaging over 20 points a night as well. Evan Mobley has turned out to be a stud on both sides of the ball at the center position. Or at the power forward position, because Jarrett Allen has also been a revelation for them, which is really unfortunate for the Nets, because right now I would say that if they had Jarrett Allen, woo, that team would be unstoppable. They wouldn't have any weaknesses. I think the Nets' biggest weakness right now is defensive and offensive rebounding and shot blocking. And Jarrett Allen provides all 3 of those. So for me, that team is just so far along their rebuild. I mean, they just have a bunch of studs over there. And, people forget that a couple of years ago, they didn't really have much hope for their rebuild. They really didn't. And right now, they are one of the best teams and most exciting young teams to watch in the NBA. I don't think they're going to win a championship this year. It's obviously possible. You never know what's going to happen in the East. But for me, they might not win a championship this year, but, they add 1 or 2 more pieces to that roster, and they're going to be a force, man. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers are really, really, really good. I'm not sure how much I still believe in Donovan Mitchell as a number 1 guy, but there's always room for me to be proven wrong, and so my number 5 team for rebuilds is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all, again, had a fantastic holiday season and have a happy new year. By the time you guys see this, it won't quite be New Year, so I hope you guys all have a happy New Year. Have a blessed 2023. I have some big goals for 2023, guys, and I hope you guys are all here to witness it. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, me again. I just want to say thank you so much for checking out the Lopes Goes Last podcast. It means the world to me that you decided to stick all the way to the end. That's super cool. So thank you again. And if you really, really like what you see, I'd love for you to subscribe, like the video, and share it with all your family and friends because, this is my passion project. This is what I love to do, and I really want the sucker to grow. And the only way that can happen is through you guys, is if you guys can help me out. So again, if you like what you saw, please subscribe, like the video, share with all your friends and family. That's the only way this is going to grow. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.